Hi, I'm the True Wise Gamer, giving off my vast knowledge so you may understand games a bit better. This month I'm doing a theme month where I talk about free tactics games on the GBA that you wouldn't think would have tactics games, but hey, I've seen weirder. These games are Onimusha Tactic, Zone of the Enders, Fist of Mars, and today's game, Yu Yu Hakusho, Tournament Tactic. So, small debriefer for those who haven't watched the show since, yeah, there are still a lot of people who haven't watched this show, including myself until I was actually working on this video. The show follows a boy named Yusuke Urameshi, who died once trying to help protect a kid, but by doing so, he was able to come back and become a spirit detective. A spirit detective helps out the other world with dealings with demons so they don't do illegal stuff. Though he's not alone, he also has the help of his friend Kuwabara, who is a wannabe punk with a heart of gold. Kurama. That's all I need to say. Hey. I still find his name funny. The cool bastard. Together these friends, it's kinda hard to call them that at a time, work together to stop demon ploys when they come up. That is the bare basics of the series, and sadly, I'm not particularly a fan of it. Like, I wouldn't call it a bad show, it's just that there are a lot of things happening that I don't always think are interesting. In fact, I got bored at times because it got a lot of repeating at the beginning, which I don't care for that much. Also, Yusuke having a lot of Deus Ex Machina victories, since he always won that way, and it just kinda got bullshit at points, with the fights with Hiei, Sakusa, and especially Toguro, since damn, they always felt bullshit to me. I only complain about it since I know this is the only time I'm ever going to talk about Yu Yu Hakusho. Anyway, that's over with. This game goes over the Dark Tournament arc, like every other Yu Yu Hakusho game out there. Seriously, there are so many that touch that arc alone. Many people think it actually ended it, when it actually had a few more arcs left. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about Yu Yu Hakusho, Tournament Tactics. So the story is, well, to be frank, it's kinda hard to do it since this story is just a very, and I do mean very abridged version of the original story. Any changes it's just made so that it could fit the tactics mode and have more than the 5 characters you would have, and so that they can replace Common Fighter. Honestly, the problem is that I don't know what's going on. Seriously, the game is just bare bones and only exists for fans who know what's going on. Hell, some of the characters that are in this game are some characters who barely showed up in the anime, like this fish guy. I'm honestly even more surprised that I even cared enough to say it's the Dark Tournament arc to begin with, than just saying it's just a bunch of fights. So yeah, there is no real story, just a bunch of fights. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay, since that's all I have to really go on, and there isn't much to talk about either. So combat is a standard tactics game with its own twist, so it's not that interesting. See, the game it has this mechanic of spirit energy as a way for characters to use special moves and deal good damage, or defend, or heal themselves up, but I'll get to that in a moment more. Though strangely enough, you don't start with these moves, though you later unlock them. I'll explain in a moment since, honestly, the worst part of this game is the beginning, since a lot of it is slow. In fact, you can't move for shit in this game at first. Seriously, look at this. And they expect us to do anything with this amount of movement? It's barely enough to reach anyone in a few turns, let alone some of these maps. This is mostly due to the game wanting to make it something you can upgrade, which makes no sense since it's never a good idea to tie movement to upgrades since they can become expensive to the right amount of movement. Though what these upgrades do is a bit unclear in and of itself. Like spirit energy, I get it, movement I get. But what the heck's the difference between offense and power? Like, they don't tell you or show off your stat differences. Like, what the hell? Post-edit note, this was supposed to go in here originally, but I forgot to add it. During the level up sequence, or when you can put points into your stats, at some point, depending on the stat for some reason, I'm not entirely sure how that works, you can actually gain a move. Though what these moves are and when you get them is a bit confusing. So one might wonder, how the hell do you gain XP in this game? You only gain it by every match. You barely get any XP from killing foes, so you just need to complete stages as quickly as possible. In fact, it's recommended to do the easier missions on harder stages so you can get it. I say that since most stages are just kill all foes. There are some missions like reach a certain spot before some time limit, which is so easy to do that you could just do it. but they rarely appear, so it hardly ever matters. In fact, I've been barely talking about the combat because it's kinda boring. Yeah, I stated the combat being a generic tactics game, though it's more complicated than it's boring. See, the game has spirit energy, and you need to use that to use anything really except movement, and some attacks that don't require it for some reason. Combat can just run up to be, just use your strongest attack or second strongest, since you don't want to always be waiting a century, since there's something called the initiative system. Which is actually kind of an interesting idea, where basically, depending on a move, it can actually make you move faster than the opponents. Thus, kind of like Grandia, where you have this circle thing, and tells you how long until your move comes up, and you can use that to your advantage so that you can run out to foes, use weak moves, just jab all your enemies, which is kind of useful, but it's so, Heck, I also mentioned getting hurt, but you don't have to worry about getting hurt that much since you can get healed up by your own move. And it heals a lot too, for that matter, so items are nearly useless, even when you can get them, since it's a part of this other system for some reason, I don't know why. Honestly, characters with long-range moves have a better advantage, since they can just fire from a distance and move along, so they make a bigger difference into combat, even though that difference is still small in comparison. So by the end of the game, Yusuke really became the powerhouse of the team, or second to Hiei, said his moves were a lot stronger and was able to move faster than Yusuke sometimes for some reason. Sadly enough, Kuwabara, the character I actually liked the most, barely could do anything. He was the slowest character, since it took him so long to recover and had less moves, thus kinda made him hard to use to begin with. Though it would explain why he didn't shoot first. Though then again, finding a camera's gotta be hard in the demon world. That's a double reference for anyone who got that. An interesting idea that I kinda think is kinda cool a bit, kinda, is that you can use other team members, but they are not that interesting, and using them will mean using weaker members, and honestly I never did, until Mass Spider died, but that's just one of the things I had to do. Honestly, there's not that much to praise. So what kept me going through this game was the nut kickers. Like, holy hot damn, there are so many in this game, like what the hell? Look at this. That is just getting kicked in the nuts. Honestly, I would say more nice things, but there's not much. Honestly, I think it would have been more okay if the pace of the game was not slow to slightly less slow, but just quick through the animations for moves. Well, they are quick. Just everything else just feels generally slow. The movement, the feel, the menu, the music, just all feels slow. Though speaking on the music, it's alright. I'm more surprised I mentioned it, if anything, since there's not much to talk about, since it's not that very interesting. I mean, most of it sounded generic, like the type of generic music you have in the background. Though I will say the game does look alright as well. I mean, like, nothing special, but it does its job. And I mean, hell, I found some of this pretty funny. I mean, like, look at this lion guy. Freaking hilarious. Honestly, there's not much left to talk about, since that's pretty much it. Just a bunch of fights until you reach the end. To conclude, I say this game's alright, just barely fine. If you're a fan, you might get some enjoyment out of it. If not, it's okay. I mean, yeah, sure, you can play it, but know there are better options out there for you. A lot of games. Like our next game. Next time on Amusha Tactic.